Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Brandao Collection. Today we're taking a look at another 1/6 scale figure, this time Sam from the film Trick or Treat, made by Trick or Treat Studios. So what we're going to do is we'll take a look at a few different poses, take a look at what the figure comes with, and have a little bit of a discussion about the figure itself. So stick around and we'll take a look right after the jump. Starting off with a basic pose for this figure, but something that's still dynamic at the same time. And you have the figure with his lollipop there, bitten off. You have him holding his sack of goodies in there, or might be something else. You have the base that he comes with, which is a custom base there that looks like the street of a town with the fake grass. And then we have a pumpkin that has the fire coming out of the top, and that pumpkin actually lights up and has a feature that flickers to make it look like real flames coming out of the pumpkin. Now, something that I had to do a little bit of a modification to this figure that's different than how it looks coming out of the box. And what I did is I actually added some cotton balls to the inside of the sack that he comes with, because the actual one, when it comes right out of the box, doesn't have anything in it. It's completely empty, so it doesn't really have that look like he's really carrying something around, and I wanted it to look a little bit better and a little bit more full. So I just took some cotton balls, stuffed them in there, retied the string back on, and I think it looks pretty great. So I'm really happy how that looks. And overall, I gotta say, just to give you a spoiler before we finish the video, I really enjoy this figure as well. But what we're gonna do is we'll jump over and we'll take a look at another pose of this figure. The next pose here is another simple pose, but looks great as well. And now we have him standing there on that base with the candy bar that has the razor blade in it. I think that looks awesome. One of the things I want to talk about as we're kind of seeing a turnaround of this pose is the head itself. I've seen other videos by other great YouTubers talk about that it might be too big, might be too round. I think it looks great. The only kind of nitpick I have, and something that I may change in the future, is I do think the coloring is a little too light. It's not dark enough. It's not dirty enough as what it looks like actually in the movie. And that's something that I might go ahead and customize myself in the future if I feel like I'm up to it. Especially that rope that's around his neck at the bottom of the mask is a little too clean, at least for my preferences. But I still think he looks great, especially for it being done by a studio who they've been putting out some great horror figures lately, and they're not the big boys. They're not Sideshow Collectibles. They're not Hot Toys. They're not even InArt, which is another company that's been very popular lately. They're a much smaller group, and I think they're putting out some great work. So that's something that, if there has to be a negative per se, I would have to say, but otherwise, I love the figure. I love this character, so I was happy to finally have him in my horror collection, so I'm just happy to have that. Before we get to the final pose of today's video, I wanted to just take a quick look at the items that actually come with the figure. So we've seen in some of the poses already, we've seen some of these accessories, but you can see here you have the base itself, which is a custom base. The only thing that's missing is it doesn't have the grabber piece. So most bases, let's say for a Hot Toys figure, comes with a grabber, whether that be what's called a crotch grabber or you have a waist grabber. This doesn't have that, so the figure is just kind of just balancing on top of the base. So there is a possibility he can fall over. Now, where I have him, he'll probably be okay, but that's something that's strange on there. But I think the base looks great, even so. Other than the base, you have the flaming pumpkin that lights up. You have two different lollipops. You have the full lollipop, and then you have the bitten off lollipop that he uses for the kill. You have the candy bar with the razor blade inside it, and then you have that sack that he carries around that I mentioned earlier. I actually added some cotton balls to it to fluff it up and make it look a little more full. The way it comes out of the box is it comes completely empty, and it has that flat look. It doesn't look that great. I think by adding something in there, especially something as simple as a cotton ball, really makes it look so much better than just how it comes right out of the box. And then the final pose we have here is actually him with his secondary head that the figure comes with, which is his unmasked pumpkin head that you see at the end of the Trick or Treat film. I think this looks awesome. It could need a little bit darker, kind of dirtier paint, if once again, if we want to get very specific to things, but I think it looks great just out of the box the way it is. I think that adds a different type of dynamic to the figure itself. Now, me personally, I'm going to be posing him and displaying him with the burlap sack with the mask version of the character, since that's the version I like the best. I think that's the most iconic version of this character from a visual standpoint, but I'm happy that Trick or Treat Studios did provide the option to pose him with this head. And the great thing too is the jaw is actually movable, so you can open and close the jaw to get different types of expressions on the figure. And of course, you have the dynamic movement of his head back and forth, side to side, from there. So I think it's a great another option, but me personally, I'm just going to keep him displayed with the masked head, as once again, I think that's the more iconic look, especially when you see him in a display. Overall, I have to say I'm really impressed at what Trick or Treat Studios has done with this Sam figure, and as I've mentioned, I'm happy to finally have a representation of the character in my horror 1/6 scale collection. He's one of my all-time favorite horror movie characters. I know that people have been making custom versions of this figure for many years. There's been figures released from NECA and many other places that were slightly 1/6 scale, maybe smaller than that, maybe bigger than that. But I'm happy there is one that's at least close enough to 1/6 scale figures so that you could put there in the collection. And I'm excited to see what Trick or Treat Studios does in the future. They have figures. One of my Michael Myers figures I have is from them as well. They have a couple other horror classics coming up very soon, so I'm very curious to see what they do in the future. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like it, subscribe to our channel, hit that bell notification to be notified when we post new videos. It helps us grow the channel by doing all those things, helps us bring you more quality content on 1/6 scale figures, autograph collecting, comic book collectings, and all things pop culture. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on collecting.